Hello and welcome to Seeing Red. It is Monday, March 11th. Fortunately, is March 11th, 2024, and not March 11th, 2020, because that was a great day. It's been 4 years. I found it funny. I'm here with I'm Will Leitch here as always with Bernie Miklasz. Follow us on Twitter, Seeing Red Pod. Email seeingredpod@gmail.com. Send us questions. We're weekly for the rest of the year. Bernie, I've written before about how I incorrectly that March 11th would end up being like a date that we would always kind of remember. And I'm totally wrong because I mentioned it to my wife this morning. I was like, hey, happy 4 years. So she's like, well, we've been married a lot longer than 4 years. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's been 4 years since Tom Hanks got COVID, Rudy Gobert canceled the NBA, Trump made that worrying speech at the end of the night, and the whole world, and we got on a plane the next day being like, wow, I guess this is the new world. So at the very least, no matter what happens, knock on whatever is near you, the baseball season, with all the troubles that have gone on with the Cardinals the last couple of weeks, does appear to still be starting on time. So we'll take that. There's no ominous. Oh, that's over in China. We'll be fine. Do you know anyone that's been to China recently? Me neither. It'll be fine.
But will the team be on time, if you know what I mean? Will they be on time?
That is the question. That is the question. Bernie, I hope you enjoyed the Oscars last night. Congratulations.
Very much so.
To Oppenheimer, my favorite movie of the year. Favorite is perhaps not the best word to use, but the best movie I saw last year was The Zone of Interest.
I was, real quick, man, I was complimenting you before we started recording, you and Gerson, about you just warning like casual film fans like me, who just assumed like Lily Gladstone's going to win Best Actor. You both of you guys were like, well, I don't know about that. Emma Stone was extraordinary, and we wouldn't be surprised if she won it, and she did. And as you pointed out a few minutes ago before we started yapping officially, no one seemed to be more surprised than Emma Stone, but she was incredible in Poor Things. She really was. But that was a great call by you guys. That's why people should listen to your weekly podcast, Talking Movies. Tell everyone how to get that.
That's the Grierson and Leitch podcast. Thank you, Bernie. It's the Grierson Leitch podcast. We do that every week with my best friend from high school in Mattoon, Illinois, Tim Grierson, who's actually now like a big shot film critic for the Los Angeles Film Critics Association. I am hobbying. In the same way that I am hobbying on this podcast, I am drifting off the expertise of my more qualified co-host. I do that in the movie podcast, and I definitely do that here.
The movie podcast, perhaps not this one. No.
Well, we'll see. So things have happened, Bernie. To say the very least, the big news. There's basically three big injury things, and I think you could make an argument. Other than maybe all three of them being starting pitchers, they actually hit at the very core of a lot of interesting decisions with the Cardinals. We've talked a lot about Sonny Gray. He's one of the three. We've talked a lot about him and the rotation. I don't know if we need to focus on him that much, if just because we've already talked about it. And B, he looks like the one that's going to be back the soonest.
Exactly.
So we'll start with the guy that looks like he's going to be back the furthest away, who is Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman, I think already opening day was in doubt, but it kind of looks like he's not reacting. The wrist is not reacting the way they would have wanted it to. This is another argument, and I'm sure you'll get into this, of why maybe that surgery should have happened a little bit earlier. To say the least. Not that I didn't enjoy watching Edman make those jump up the wall catches off Adam Wainwright bombs in the Atlanta series in the Braves series I went to. If you remember that was a game where Wainwright basically just got hammered in that fifth inning, and Edmonds was like bouncing off the wall, jumping over the wall, so that inning was only 5 runs rather than 11. But certainly, it's connected to the Nootbaar thing, and we can touch on the Nootbaar thing, though I want to get into that to a larger level. But certainly the fact that Edman doesn't just look like he's going to miss opening day, it looks like he's going to be out. I'm at this point, end of April, I hope. What do you think of the ongoing Edman absence and what that kind of means for the team moving forward?
There's so many different levels, but number one, and I've been raising hell about it on my radio show, and also it's at my column that I write, columns plural, I write at scoopswitheddiemac.com. I have not, looking back on it, and I don't think this is a cheap shot second guess. I think it's very appropriate because you saw Yeah, we saw Brendan Donovan shut it down. It's like, hey man, I need surgery. Listen, this season's lost. Next season really matters. So I'm going to go have this taken care of and I'll be ready to go by spring training. And he was, even though they missed his bat for 2 months. It was kind of like, so what? It was a lost cause anyway. You saw, Nolan Gorman was shut down. Arenado to an extent was shut down. The Cardinals were using, and their players were both sort of coming to a really smart understanding of like, listen, there's no point right now in making an injury worse, or putting off a surgery. Go have it. We want to be ready to go to 2024. Why in the heck was he allowed to play? And we learn more and more about it as time goes on. John Denton's reported, that wrist injury condition has been bothering Edman for 2 years, not just a couple months, for 2 years. And why did they let him go hard to the finish line in a lost cause where clearly this was an issue? And for them to be in denial about it or let Tommy Edman have his way, oh, I'm okay, I want to play. At some point, I mean, this is why people are paying managers and coaches and general managers or whatever. Sometimes you got to say no. You got to tell the player, no, we love you, but no, we need you next year. And why they put this off to surgery until October is just absolutely incomprehensible. I mean, and now they're paying the price for this. But that I hit the biggest layer there. That's my biggest grievance about all this. You can talk about what it means, as you just noted, what it means to their defense, because there are repercussions there too. And this is no way to start off 2024.
Yeah, and I think one of the weirdest things about the fact that they held off that surgery too is they've kind of, like, a large part of this roster construction has been built around the idea that is our center fielder now.
Right.
Like, Edman was a guy that was, he won a Gold Glove in the infield. He's been able to play all of these positions. That's always been one of the most valuable things about Edman. And I know we've all decided, I guess they clearly decided, like, oh no, Donovan is our Edman now. And that's fine. That's a different conversation. But Edman's whole thing, we didn't even know he was considered a center fielder, let alone was such as good as a center fielder as he was until last season was pretty much already lost, right? It was a surprise. We talked about this in the show last year. Watching, like, hey, wait a second. Is Edman actually like a center fielder? Is that like a guy can you trust him out there? And once it looked like, okay, you can, then they're like, okay, that unlocked a lot of other stuff. That unlocked you don't have to put Nootbaar in center field. That unlocked Carlson can be the fourth outfielder or even the fifth outfielder. That unlocked Wynn can be the shortstop now, and you can put him there and let him run there. That unlocked a whole bunch of stuff. That simple realization that Tommy Edman can play center field as well as he did, and he played it much better than, frankly, you'd have any right to expect him to. I think he looked, a lot of the metrics argued this as well, he was a terrific center fielder. And what it was, honestly, you could make an argument that one of the few good things that happened in 2023 was, hey, look, Tommy Edman can play center field. Awesome. That fixes a lot. That makes it so you don't have to stick O'Neill out there. You can trade him. He's the center fielder. The problem is they make all these decisions while still putting off this wrist thing.
Right.
That, to me, is what's so strange about it. It's not like, no offense to Dylan Carlson, but it's not like this was Dylan Carlson having a wrist thing where it's like, yeah, it's another thing, right? Well, hopefully he'll be able to play through it, but he's got a lot to prove anyway. They clearly were counting on Tommy Edman to be the center field, and the proof is the fact that all the other moves they made around that, all the other things, we've talked a lot about trying to get the locked in positions. Edman was locked into center field. It affected everything else on this roster. And now all of a sudden, and then we'll get to the Nootbaar thing in a second, but the fact that they didn't take care of this to get it ready for opening day, when they clearly, their whole roster construction was based around the idea that Tommy Edman was going to be in center field on opening day, is very concerning. Because now you've got, okay, well, Win better work. Because listen, I enjoyed seeing Brandon Crawford in a Cardinals uniform. If it gets to the point where Brandon Crawford is the shortstop every day for this team, there's a problem. There's a problem. That means Wynn has either gotten hurt or not worked out, and now you're counting on a guy that, frankly, has not hit for a couple of years, and the metrics do not.
That's right.
At shortstop. So you've got that. Then you've got adding in the Nootbaar stuff and whatever. Nootbaar, it's not like Nootbaar suddenly got struck by lightning. Injuries are always a issue for Nootbaar. This is always a thing that kind of comes in. So there's another backup center fielder out of the way, and a left field guy out of the way. So now you've got Burleson, and then you're hoping Walker, who made strides in right field last year, but certainly I don't think anyone's calling it Gold Glover yet. Right. The fact that Edman is out for, listen, they've already been too optimistic about Edman.
Yeah, you can't trust any timetable they give you. You can't. I mean, listen, we all tend to be naive because we want to believe they're telling the truth or they know what they're talking about. But over many, many years covering Cardinals baseball and talking about them as you have, you just learn, no, be highly skeptical of whatever the latest timetable is. So yeah, that's a safe place to be in, because that way you won't be as stressed out when the actual reality arrives about how long a guy's going to be out, So yeah, and one more thing I want to add too. You're so right about how that decision to move him to center really just put everything else in place, what the kind of team they wanted to have, which includes, and I have mixed feelings about it because I do think I do think Burleson is going to be a good major league hitter. But the point is, he was brutal defensively. I tried to stick up for him, but he was really, really bad. I can't do it. So part of this, part of the thing, the domino effect, if you will, of having Edman in center field, it conveyed a serious initiative to sort of put defense first, or make defense a much larger priority to avoid a repeat of that debacle last season defensively. And part of that was like, listen, we can't have Burleson playing left field all the time. We can get around that too. He can go to Memphis, work on his fielding. There'll be a time for him, but we have to make sure that our defense really, really, really matters. And a lot of decisions are going to be predicated on that. Well, as you mentioned, now that even the Burleson part is I don't know if it's out the window, but it's certainly on hold, because it certainly looks like he's going to be part of the mix, playing maybe left field early in the season, and we'll have to wait and see after that. But you're so right. There has been a pretty large domino effect to all this, and that can't be denied. And it's really a shame, because even when they were trying to do the right thing, they were also counting on people that don't stay healthy. Because do any of their outfielders stay healthy? Yeah. Knock on wood for Jordan Walker, but do any of them stay healthy? It doesn't seem like it, given the history over the last few years.
Yeah, and you start looking like, we'll get into the at some point. I'm sure we'll talk about who's going to be the opening day starting pitcher. I don't want to overreact to the Sonny Gray thing. I would argue,
no, I agree,
poorly as the Edman thing was handled injury wise. I kind of feel like they're being pretty smart about the Sonny Gray thing, and I think, frankly, that maybe because Sonny Gray is being very smart.
That's right.
He seems to know himself very well and understand this was a small tweak. He's going to be all right. We're not going to push it, but it's also not going to be that long of a thing. But it does lead to the rather worrisome aspect of, I'm going to assume Miles Michaelis is going to be the opening day starter against a Dodgers lineup that is scary, and a Cardinals outfield that has Burleson in left field, Carlson probably in center field, Walker in right field, and then has Carlson and Wynn as your 8 and 9 hitters in the lineup. Against Yamamoto or Glasnow or whatever awesome starter the Dodgers bring up there. I know this was just one game, but we've already spent all this time about how difficult the beginning of the season is for the Cardinals schedule, and how important it is for Marmol, for the Cardinals, for it to get going, for all the bad vibes of last year to have some pull out of it. It does feel when you're clearly going to be without Edman, you're going to be out Gray for a little bit, and then Nootbaar, maybe this is the time to talk about Nootbaar. It appears to be as scary as the term fractured vertebrae in the ribs, or fractured ribs is. It seems like they just think it can heal, but it is Nootbaar.
Well, yeah,
is a guy that's always getting hurt and not quite 100% the way that you'd like. And he doesn't seem, he's so much more likable in a lot of ways than O'Neill, and seems to bounce back, has a better attitude than O'Neill. But he's starting to kind of look injury-wise like, oh, if this guy could just stay healthy, he'd get there. And then he is never healthy. Whew, all of a sudden, that lineup that we thought was going to carry them, even if they could just get some innings out of their starters, I'm not going to panic about this, but the season is just more than 2 weeks away, and that opening day lineup is looking
Yeah.
a little scary.
No, I don't think it's an overreaction of all, because let's face it, the stuff that we're saying, and I know a great deal, great many people agree with us. There's a chance this all goes away by mid-April or something. You know, maybe we will look back and say it was maybe too much about Little. But we can't do that because of their injury history and the way they handle these things and all the mistakes that have been made through the years. And we also can't, we also have to acknowledge that, as you just did, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, wow, hey, Nootbaar's ahead of schedule. He's going to be back. Oh, Nootbaar's back. Isn't that great? Well, how long is he going to stay there? I mean, you know, that's the thing. There is a pattern here, and it's an unfortunate pattern, but there's a pattern of injuries. It's a guy gets banged up quite a bit. And so when he comes back, that'll be, well, really outstanding news, and we'll be happy. But how much confidence does anybody have that, you know, there won't be subsequent injuries? I mean, you know, until he shows he can basically go through a whole season without having to go to the IL 2 or 3 times. Yeah, you almost have to just assume that this is going to be a thing. And I hope I'm wrong, and I know you hope you're wrong about it, but you can't really trust the situation, and it's very concerning. I had a stat the other day, and you know, which I'll just repeat and then, you know, move on. If you go back like the last 3 seasons, 21, 22, 23, St. Louis outfielders have spent 840 days, in-season days, on the side because of injuries. O'Neill, Bader, Nootbaar, Carlson were the top 4. Those 4 alone, 414 missed days over the last 3 seasons. And it's like, they just can't get past this. It's like, there's always another breakdown right around the corner, right on the next road trip or whatever. You know that, hold your breath, because it's about time for another outfielder to go down. It's a really maddening thing. It really is. I don't have an explanation for it. Is it fair to say this is just more misjudgment on their part? There wasn't anything to suggest Nootbaar, you know, before he actually started getting injury. I don't think there was anything to suggest that, you know, he was going to be one of these frequent injury list guys. And I never thought that way about Carlson when he broke into the majors. So I don't know what it is, but they have no stability in the outfield. Something's always breaking down.
And I have to say, at a certain level, all of these things individually, like, you know, Nootbaar was going for a ball and fell the wrong way. You know, Edmonds' wrist, you know, it's not like it's a big chronic problem for years. O'Neill's always something popping up. Carlson, we all thought Carlson was like there were people they could have traded Carlson for that people were hesitant to do because Carlson looked like this great prospect going on. Individually, you can understand a lot of decisions, but collectively, my God, Bernie, how many years have we been talking about this outfield? And not just talking about this outfield, like, what are the Cardinals going to do about the outfield? What are the Cardinals going to make about the outfield? What's happening with the outfield? So in a lot of ways, you know, we've seen this with an individual. You can understand all of these things. A lot of them makes a certain amount of sense. Collectively, though, like, we've been excited about the outfield, then it falls back, and it's coming together, and then someone else has it. It's not just one guy. Like, well, I wonder if we almost thought, well, if we get rid of O'Neill, maybe that, like, O'Neill has been the most frustrating one, but it doesn't feel like O'Neill is. He's obviously not the only guy. He's obviously not the only guy, and the problem has not gone away. So I don't know what it would be systemically, but it's clearly happening systemically, and now they're running out of gas, which leads me to the next question, which is, I'm sure, what every fan is saying. Hey, how about Victor Scott II? How about Victor Scott II? Does he solve some problems? Does he? And on one hand, I think he's been impressive. He seems like he's been impressive. I think that he's hitting the ball a little harder than I thought he was going to from what I've seen. So I think there's reason to be encouraged there. I think there's two issues. One, like listen, we all want him to Vince Coleman this, right? Like that's what comes up constantly. It's not just that he's going to go steal 100 bases, though. I did forget that Vince Coleman is the last person that didn't steal 100 bases, that did steal 100 bases in baseball. But it's not just that. It's remember the famous story from the Heck of a Year documentary that I watched in 1985. The famous story of him coming up and who's the general manager in '85? Was it Max? It was
Maxwell.
Maxwell. Yeah, Dow Maxwell. And he brought up Coleman, and Maxwell said, I told him, listen, you're just here because Willie McGee's out for like a week. And Vince Coleman says, no, that's great, that's fine, but I'm gonna be here the entire year. And Maxwell's like, listen, it doesn't matter how well you do, you're not going to be here all year. And Vince is like, that's fine, you can say that, but I'm gonna be here all year. And of course, it transformed that entire team. We all want that for Victor Scott II. I love the idea. It's a great notion. We're all excited about it. The problem is there's two problems. One, it's a lot to put on him. And two, even if he is great, Edman's going to be back eventually. Nootbaar's going to be back eventually. That leads to problems, particularly because if Scott struggles at all, either in the beginning or when those guys start to come back, then you could send him down. You've messed up his momentum. You could mess up him in the long term. I think I'd love for them to be like, you know what, let's just ride with Scott. I don't think they're going to, and I'm not sure they should.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man. Did I cut you off?
No, go.
Oh, okay.
No, you're good.
No, my bad. No, I don't think they will. I mean, I'm tempted. I am absolutely tempted to say, oh, do it. Oh, do it. But look, in fairness to them, as far as we know, put an asterisk next to that. As far as we know, Edman's not a long-term injury. Nootbaar's not a long-term injury. If one of these was a long-term injury, then it would make a lot more sense, or I think they would be more willing to do that. Okay, now it's Victor Scott go time, because we need him to play. He'll play, and he'll play a lot. So it's not going to be like, hurting his development or whatever. He's not going to be sitting around. But I just don't see either one of these things as long-term injuries, like standalone long-term injuries. There could be other injuries that we just discussed with Nootbaar. Later on, there could be other injuries, but right now, these are both something that you would figure to be manageable. They can get through it. It's not fun. It doesn't help them, but they can get through it, and without having to go to the Victor Scott solution, which a lot of that is always tied to eligibility time and all that stuff. So they probably don't want to do that for that reason as well. And is he really ready? Listen, I think he's incredibly exciting, but is he really ready? Like, for example, Mason Wynn provides a recent lesson in this. Everybody was fired up about Jordan Walker last spring. Okay. But I would say, like, towards the end of spring, at least at least where I get a lot of public feedback, it seemed to me like fans were like just as fired up about Mason Wynn. And it's just like, well, can he make the team, coming out of camp? Mason Wynn was outstanding in spring training last year. And then he went to the minors, got off to a little bit of a slow start, but was really, really, really good. And then when they bring him up, he hits 172, which was no huge surprise. It just shows you it still is a pretty big jump from the minor leagues and only a little time at AAA before you graduate to the big leagues. And there's an adjustment period. Jordan Walker may have spoiled this in that regard. Albert Pujols certainly spoiled this in that regard. But realistically, when a guy comes right up, maybe Michael Harris, the second, is an exception. There aren't many exceptions. Dudes struggle especially when they're really young, and they're making a pretty big jump really early. So I can kind of see a parallel between, the Mason Wynn experience of last spring and last season, and then Victor Scott now. I think there's a cautionary tale there, maybe.
Yeah, and listen, I'd love to. It sounds fun, right? It sounds really fun, and I love the idea. But like, this first month's going to be tough. This first month's going to be tough, and there's just not like Victor Scott looks like a guy that's going to be a part of this team for a while, and a guy they're excited about. And listen, maybe he has been a fast riser, right? Like, this is not a guy they thought was going to be a big deal 3 years ago, and he is now. So I understand that, but I feel like asking him to do that is a little bit asking, I don't know, Tekoa Roby to help us out in the rotation. right now, right? Like it just feels like the Cardinals need to be good. If it doesn't work right now, that could cause a lot of problems. Is in the short term and the long term. Though I would say if there's one major takeaway from this, it's boy, how far has Dylan Carlson fallen?
Ooh.
Like, think about the idea that the Cardinals traded away Harrison Bader because Carlson had shown that he could play center field, and it looked very exciting and very and that was like it was, well, we can trade away this outfielder, this terrific defensive center fielder, and also a guy that the fans love. We can trade him away because Carlson looks like he's ready for center field, and now not only is a guy that never played center field for the Cardinals ever until like May or June of last year is hurt and causing a huge disaster. The idea that Carlson is the center fielder on opening day feels like a panic-worthy event. That to me speaks to how far he's fallen, and I would also argue may speak to this really being. It's a great chance for him, like another one. There's been so many. It's a great chance for him, but also I have to say it's starting to feel like maybe his last chance.
Yeah, it's just kind of a depressing story, actually. He was so exciting when they brought him up late in 2020, and even when that San Diego playoff series, he looked like their best player. He was so good, and then he was fine in 21. Like he didn't ignite like the first half of 21, but in the second half after the All-Star break of 2021, I mean, I would invite our listeners to go look it up at Baseball Reference, but just look at his splits and look at after the All-Star break. His numbers were terrific, and so it was like, yeah, that's the guy, that's Dylan Carlson. Man, you got to be careful with him because this guy could be really special. And you know what? I said that at the time, and I wouldn't change a damn thing of what I said because at that time he looked like a guy who could be really special. I don't know what happened. I don't know how to get him back. I don't know what's going on. I mean, as far as like, is it confidence? Is it? I just don't know. Is he just can't maintain any kind of strength? Why does he continue to hit left-handed? Why doesn't he just focus on hitting right-handed? How many people are in his ear? Is he listening to too many people? I don't, or is it all the above? I have no idea, but it's really disappointing and it's kind of a bummer. It really is.
And this, I mean, this is how many, we are in so many changes. Like, heck, even when they traded away Bader for Carlson, Bader so Carlson got center field, Carlson had already blown a couple opportunities by that point. And so now, for the record, he's still. This is one of the reasons I was hesitant to trade him. I was glad they traded away O'Neill rather than him. But if you notice, O'Neill's already having some injury troubles in Boston. I don't know if you've seen that. But anyway, whatever. That's a Boston problem, not a St. Louis problem. But the idea, like Carlson's still only 25. He's like a month older than Burleson. Like he's still really, really young, and like so the notion that he's a year older than Liberator, he's like this notion that he is still he's a year younger than Nootbaar. Like Carlson still is a guy that is young. Like it still feels like because he just came up quicker, he came up earlier, he came up younger. That he's had all of these misses and. Is there still a part of me that feels like Carlson at some point, that all the talent's there, it seemed all set up for him. He's had some injuries. At some point, it's going to have to pay off. But the Cardinals need to pay off now, or it's not going to pay off for him. Because that speaks to like we talk about. I wouldn't say we're quite at 5-alarm fire worry. I think if Gray were out for 3 months, we'd be a 5-alarm fire point. We're not at that point. But I think the idea that Edman not being able to play center field is causing so many problems rather than us going, all right, Carlson, you're up. Here's your chance. The fact that nobody has any faith that Carlson's going to be able to take care of that speaks to just how bad it's got.
Listen,
it's a shame.
Listen, I dabble in like questioning, his motivation. Not that he's a dog or anything like that. I'm not going that far. But again, you just wonder what makes him tick. That's what I can't answer. What makes him tick? What makes him lock in? What is gonna make him lock in? And in a way that it'll summon his best performance, because there is talent there. And the way I'm looking at this is, unless the Cardinals do a really stupid thing, which you can't rule that out, of course. And Tommy Edman talks his way into the lineup before he's really, really ready, like really ready to play. Like you want him at his best. I mean, you don't want him going in there too soon. If it's gonna mean another week, fine. Like don't be stupid. It's better to be on the more conservative side here. But they make that mistake over and over again too. Jack Flaherty talking his way into a start when he clearly wasn't ready. Remember that famous the 2022. So again, managers got to say no sometime. Anyway, but what an opportunity this is for Carlson. Nobody wants to see Edman hurt. Carlson doesn't want to see him hurt either. But what an opportunity, because he knows, the doubt level about him is like at an all-time high. But for him, like, to start the season in center field with a chance to just pardon the cliche, make a statement about who you are and what you can still accomplish in this game. This should be, in a way, an exciting time for him. Let's see what he does with it, because he will be playing early in the season. It's just a question of how much, how long.
I mean, think of the context of a year and a half ago about, hey, Dylan Carlson's the opening day starting fielder in 2024. 2 years ago, I would say that's something that we would have been excited about, and now it feels like a huge problem, and that's not good. It just really does feel, as someone who has been the requisite, whereas you've been up on Burleson, I feel like I've always been the requisite Carlson defender on this. This is. I mean, you're not going to get a better shot than this, man.
Yeah, I've been in his corner quite a long time, but you just reach a feeling of exasperation that's inevitable, because at some point there's got to be some results. And I know he was banged up last year. I know he was hurt. I get it, but he's healthy now. And I know it's only spring training, but on March 28th, it's the real stuff. And if he's healthy and he still has that talent, and he still has a chance to be what everybody thought he was going to be. Well, this is the time to show it. I mean, I think it's to me, it's never been as defined as it is right now. This is your time. Show us what you can do. So we're going to find out a lot about him in a lot of different ways. But no, and so far, he's sparked up a little bit offensively in spring training, but spring training stats are, beware of spring training stats anyway. It's kind of my general policy.
Yeah, and not to gloss over this, but like this, assuming the notion, I think correctly, that there's no realistic possibility that Victor Scott the second is the center fielder. Though it is tempting. Like, there is a certain lizard brain logic to it,
right?
But I don't think it's they're going to do it. And I don't think they should do it as much as if they did it, I'd be like, okay, this will be fun. It might not be fun.
And that's right. And one little side note on this that's absolutely related. Listen, they like this Michael Ciani, not because he's any great, major league outfielder, but the guy can run like hell. And he, by all accounts, I mean, it's not a hype thing. It's not an overstatement thing. He plays really, really good defense. So I'll be curious to see how much opportunity, he'll get early in the season, and, what he can make of it, because there's some skill there. If you're looking for power, no. But if you're looking for a guy who can draw walks, run really, really well, steal some bags, play good defense, he can help your team in that way. It also means a lot of the other guys in that lineup are going to have to carry the lineup, because you can't realistically expect much from him. So I'm not hyping him out. I'm just hyping him up. I'm just saying he's an interesting cat. And there is some skill there. There are some attributes there. So unfortunately, power hitting's not one of them. So we'll see what develops.
And he's a path, at least, like, there's less resistance. Like, it's a big leap for Scott to be on the opening roster. It's not a big leap for Ciani to be on the opening roster.
That's right.
You can drop him down. You're not going to hurt him. Like, there's no real long-term plans for him. And you wonder if he kind of takes the Palacios spot of the guy that looks like he's taking advantage of an opportunity that Dylan Carlson has floundered yet again. Because, like, we saw that last year, right? Palacios, and listen, they got, for what everyone's thoughts about Palacios late last year, or how he will do with the Rays, that was a guy I was just like, hey, good for you. You made the roster. You're getting some playing time. And the Cardinals got something out of him. And they got some out of him last year, and they got some out of him in trade. So, I think that there's value in that. Maybe Ciani is that guy. The point was, when you put Palacios next to Carlson's obviously more talented, just like Carlson's obviously more talented than Ciani. But Carlson keeps not taking advantage of those opportunities. Whereas you watch Palacios, so you're like, okay, whatever your thoughts with this guy, he is taking every advantage of this opportunity that
That's
he has
right.
right now.
That's right.
Maybe Siani's that.
Hey, one other question. Based on their public comments to the media and everything, they seem reluctant to put Brendan Donovan in left field. I can understand that. I have mixed feelings about it. First of all, you're going to need him moving around anyway. He is going to be a super utility guy again, and that's a valuable role. But the other thing is, if the elbow's sound, if the elbow's good to go, if there's no problems, there's no restrictions, why wouldn't he be a candidate maybe to play in left field a little more? Maybe on one hand, I want to defer to them because you got to assume they know better. But then again, do they know better? Do we trust them with these kind of evaluations? I can't say that I do.
I mean, are there restrictions or are there not restrictions?
Exactly, right?
That's really the question.
And
There's
it's
no restrictions.
yeah.
I listen. I actually don't think I don't think they should plug Donovan in left field. I think he's a better player than Burleson. I think he's a better player. I mean, like you could make an argument he's a better player than Newbar. I mean, he's a really good player, but I think you are deserved by putting Donovan in one spot anywhere. And so, but the idea that could he play a little bit of left field? Yeah, but I don't think you want to do that in the first place. But I think you're right. I think that putting him out there, that actually is the last button I want to put on this outfield thing. We've gone a long time in the outfield, but it's a big question.
It is.
We're always talking about the freaking outfield. Speaking of opportunities, this is such an opportunity for Burleson, a guy that kind of looked after the Carpenter thing might not make the opening day roster. Now looks like he's the starting left fielder batting 6th or 7th in this roster. So for me, that is it's a huge opportunity for Burleson. And so of all the guys, it's funny, all the stories that you would have liked to have heard about Carlson coming into spring training looks live, looks stronger, looks like he's ready to play. You're actually hearing those about Burleson. You're not hearing those about Carlson. This is an opportunity for Burleson to show that.
Yeah, and he has lost weight. He does move better. I'm not saying that makes him a great left fielder. I'm not saying that at all, but he's more capable, it seems. And his hitting ability's always been there. It's just a matter of, the actual numbers have to the actual numbers have to start getting closer to the metrics, like at StatCast, that tell us, hey, he's got a lot of positive things going on as a hitter. But no, I'll be curious. You're right. I mean, it's such an opportunity for him, and I shouldn't underestimate that. Him and Carlson both. I mean, you can kind of look at him as a tag team. Big opportunity for both of these guys, depending on how long Edman is out, Newbar is out, or how long they're out at the simultaneously at the same time. So you're right. You're so right about that.
So I wanted to close with two things. One, a large one, and one, a funny story. We're actually we're back weekly, though we're going to be a day later in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to need to remind Bernie about it just because I'm flying to New York on one of those days. I'm going to be on MLB Network. I'm actually doing some more MLB Network stuff this year.
Well, good.
So be prepared for me to be talking way too fast for Harold Reynolds. Be prepared for that.
That's right.
But
I hope you do. It'd be fun to watch. Yeah, go ahead.
I love Harold. I just,
Good guy.
we're on different frequencies. I would put it that way. Anyway, I am very curious. I'm doing my predictions this week for MLB.com, each division winner. And we don't have to make our big predictions yet, but I will say, as I look, I would say there's a couple of events of the last week or so that if you're thinking of who is the Cardinals, it's hard to say who's the Cardinals' biggest rival to win the NL Central because the Cardinals finished last year.
That's
like
right.
The Cardinals should be so fortunate to have a rival in this division. But I think the Cubs have taken step forwards where the Reds have taken steps back. I don't love a lot of the Reds' moves this year, and the big thing they have with him, their Rookie of the Year candidate, Noelvi Marte, got an 80-game suspension. Got an 80-game suspension for PEDs. I think that speaks to some bad vibes going on with the Reds right now. I think some of their ads aren't great. Some of their young players have not made big moves the way that you would have liked them to. Whereas the Cubs, to me, frankly, look like they should have won the division last year and just kind of faltered late. Getting counsel there. I'm curious your thoughts on it. Just like 5 minute thought, whatever reaction is. I feel like if right now I am leaning, we'll do our official predictions. I am leaning toward the Cubs being the favorite in this.
Yeah, I've been saying, even though I've also made sure to point out repeatedly the projection systems, every single one of them are, positive on the Cardinals' chances of winning the
They
division.
have them as the favorites handily.
Yeah,
It's not even particularly
right.
close.
So it's not like I'm always interested in what projection models say, because it doesn't mean that they're going to be absolutely right. It's just, it's a completely unbiased, neutral view based on the talent that's on hand. Um, but that said, even though I've been touting, hey, the Cardinals might win 85, 86 games, or the projection systems sort of indicate that could be enough to get in the playoffs. It's not ideal, but they'll have a chance. And that's all you can ask for coming off a 91 loss season. All right. But I've still thought all along the Cubs are the team to beat. Because I look at Milwaukee and the way that Counsell handled a pitching staff, the way he ran a bullpen, nobody was better. Nobody. And also his record, which was extraordinary in one-run games. And you just look at that margin with how important are managers. I think we're going to find out a lot this year, because, I mean, this is pretty much not pretty much like the same team that David Ross had. There's some changes, but it's nothing really dramatic. But the Cubs let a lot of games get away. They had a lot of, and I think Counsell is going to make
Particularly late.
I know, right? And I think Counsell is going to make a huge difference. I put Counsell at the top of the list of the reasons why I think the Cubs are going to win the division. Now, they've got some problems. I mean, Jameson Taillon is having back issues that he's got to go in for testing. Who knows what that's going to lead to? They really haven't settled on a third baseman. I mean, Wisdom has been hurt. Morel, a little shaky defensively. They're not entirely sold. And even with Counsell running the bullpen, they don't really have this long established, oh, that's the guy type closer. And so that's a little bit of a question that's hanging too. So that is a team. I wouldn't say that team's complete. They may have to, they were already sort of trying to figure out who their fifth starter is going to be. If Taillon's injury is going to last a little while, they're going to have to, in effect, plug 2 rotation spots. They do have some promising arms, don't get me wrong. I mean, in time, they'll be in good shape there. But at the beginning of the season, it's a question. So, but I'm still going to go with them, because I have such faith in Craig Counsell's ability to squeeze out everything he can, every win that he can from that team.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know. I feel like the Reds are the Brewers. I think the Brewers are not done. By the way, I think just because Burns is gone doesn't mean they're completely out of the picture. But I still feel like right now I'm leaning toward the Cubs. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's logical. I really truly do.
Also, one thing I'm not going to have a conversation about is Trevor Bauer. If I hear one more person bring up Trevor Bauer to bring up I understand he will pitch for the minimum. I understand that he was a hit 99 on the gun the other day. I am telling you right now, if you want to enjoy watching the Cardinals this year and then watching the way the Cardinals are viewed throughout baseball this year, do not sign Trevor Bauer. I mean, they're not going to. But I would encourage anyone who is trying to make the case for the Cardinals to sign Trevor Bauer to think long and hard about that.
This isn't a holier than thou proclamation either. Even before all this mess with him, that got him suspended for a long time. Listen, his Dodgers teammates couldn't stand him when he was in Cleveland.
The Reds couldn't stand him.
They couldn't stand him.
Like he's a jackass.
The Reds couldn't stand him. And one of the things they've tried to do, and we can, as you and I have discussed it, we can question whether they're putting too much emphasis on, well, we got to have a really good clubhouse this year. We didn't have it last year. That's why I do understand. I'm not saying it'll turn out great, but I do understand why they wanted Carpenter and Crawford to help them shore up that area. I mean, those are two guys with some gravitas that have no problem basically letting young players know what's up as far as the way they go about things, and also just, you need to do this, you need to work on that. I mean, they needed that element, because as we talked about last week, Goldie and Arenado they're not those kind of guys. They don't get in people's faces. Now that it may turn out that those two that they put too much on that, and they got to at least get something out of Carpenter and Crawford offensively. But anyway, um, if you took a anonymous poll of all the Cardinals players down there, I guarantee you, if it wasn't, it would maybe it wouldn't be unanimous, but those players down there, they don't want Trevor Bauer. Some fans might. His would-be teammates can't stand the idea of putting that poison into their clubhouse, and that's exactly what it would be. And so you have to consider the human element here. It's not, if he was all that, if he was so great, why has he been traded around so many times?
Before this.
Yeah, I mean,
Before that,
even as a young would-be ace, like they couldn't wait to get him out of Arizona. It's like, this guy, get him out of here. We don't care how great he's going to be. Get him out of here. Nobody wants to be around him. And the idiot that in the middle of the World Series, cuts open his thumb, like fooling around with a drone. I mean, that's the guy you want in your clubhouse? And I haven't even gotten to some of the other crap.
yeah, to the actual stuff that he got suspended for.
Yeah, I mean, people are just nuts, man, to want this guy. Just cuckoo, man. Nothing is that urgent. Nothing. No team is that desperate to bring in a clubhouse toxin. Did you say, we're going to bring a toxin in. We want to infect our clubhouse and make it a really unhappy place. Let's do that. Great idea,
Yeah, and just be miserable to every time he listen, it's just no. Okay, so last thing I want to do is a shout out. Here's a thing that you should know about me, Bernie. When
I know everything about you. What are you talking about? Go ahead.
You're behind me right now. So I do not live in the St. Louis area. Of course, I grew up in Manton, Illinois, and I've grew up around tons of Cardinal fans, and all my friends that are right-minded and good of spirit are Cardinals fans. But I live in Athens, Georgia. Before here, I lived in New York City. So for me to see someone wearing a Cardinals thing it's more common than seeing a lot of other teams, but it's not common as seeing like the Braves or the Mets or the Yankees back when I lived in New York. So I always get very excited when I see someone wearing a Cardinals thing. This has actually led to some weird moments where there have been times I've walked up to someone has approached me on the street as I'm walking across, and I'll see them wearing a Cardinals thing, and I'll say something like, "Hey!" And then I realize I'm not wearing a Cardinals thing, and I'm just some weird guy that yelled at them. So I always try to remember to say "Go Cards" or something. So a shout out to Lucas. Lucas is a guy. He's from Tennessee, and he was in downtown Atlanta. I took my son when we went to an Atlanta United soccer game, went to the Civil Rights Museum in downtown Atlanta, went to the Illusions Museum, which is really, really fun. These are some of the fun pictures we put on my Instagram. We had a good time. But I was walking to the Civil Rights Museum with my son, and there's a guy wearing a Cardinal shirt. So I, of course, go, "Hey, go Birds!" And of course, like a reasonable person, they're like, "It's too late." He's walking with his girlfriend. And so he just sent me a a direct message on Twitter, X, right before we started saying, "Hey, just out of curiosity, did you yell at me walking through downtown? Was that you? I recognized your voice." And apparently,
it's funny.
I no longer look the way that him and his girlfriend looked up pictures of me online. She didn't think it was me. I don't know if I look different now or something. It's probably the thick, rich beard that I can't grow. So shout out to Lucas. I'm sorry I yelled at you in downtown Atlanta, but just know, America and surrounding communities, if you're wearing a Cardinals thing and I run into you, you're getting a Go Birds. Just so you know, that will be the case forever and ever. So shout out to Lucas. Thank you for letting me yell at you with my 9-year-old on my way to the Civil Rights Museum.
Totally cool. I love the story. And good on them. Because they had enough evidence to pursue the case, I like it. I like it.
This is the downside of listening to this podcast: is if I yell at you in the street, you know who yelled at you, because you know my voice. All right, Bernie, we'll be back next week. We are just more than 2 weeks away from the season, so it's getting together now. So we'll be back next Monday. We'll also probably do some March Madness stuff because Missouri can make a run.
Yeah, that's right. There's no doubt about it. Hey, listen, and don't overlook St. Louis U's team. You got thank goodness for the Illini. And I know that some Mizzou and SLU fans hearing this are cringing that I would profess that I love watching the Fighting Illini. I do. Yeah. I mean, I've never been hung up on this geographical boundary. I can't like anything that's over state line. It's just stupid. I like the way they play. They're entertaining. But it's amazing that, St. Louis U, the Atlantic 10, and Mizzou, the SEC, they're both going into their respective conference tournaments, the bottom seed. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what a nightmare locally, other than Metro East. And we have a lot of listeners over there. We have a lot of great Cardinals fans over there. The Metro East, a lot of Illinois fans over there. But other than the Metro East, it's like it's been a total, just a total wasted season of college basketball here locally.
Yeah, well, this is why people should have been Illini fans in the first place. I'm just telling you, Illini fans. This is. I'm just saying, your listeners, you are already with the Lord. You are already on the Lord's side by being a Cardinals fan. Come all the way and join Illini Nation.
At least the thing I like about their win over Iowa yesterday, they played defense for the first time since early February. I mean,
Iowa was desperate.
Yeah,
and they really didn't have any problem with him. So, so good time. So I do a bracket at my personal newsletter, WilliamFLeach.substack.com. I'll be giving that all to you next week. We'll have a big bracket pool, so on. But Bernie, until then, have a great week and enjoy Selection Sunday, and we'll chat next week.
All right, thanks, Will. Take care.